The cold sun of a pale Christmas Eve morning hung low, casting long shadows over the slushy sidewalks where people hurried with bags full of gifts. But for Mara Kelson, the day felt heavier than the sky itself. Her hands were trembling as she held the only money left in her pocket, a wrinkled, slightly damp $10 bill. It was all she had. Not just all she had for the day. All she had in the world. With that last $10 she could either take the final bus across town to a temporary shelter, or she could buy a small meal after 2 days without food. She stood at the bus stop, her stomach aching, her breath visible in the winter air, wondering how a life could collapse so quietly, and how a single choice could decide whether she stayed warm or stayed alive. If you're watching this and you believe in kindness, miracles, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Echoes of Kindness, because stories like this remind us how one moment of faith can change everything. Mara's life had not always been like this. Once, she had a tiny apartment, a job at a florist shop, and a warm circle of co-workers who felt like family. But life can twist faster than wind on a winter morning. Her mother's long illness drained her savings. The hospital bills swallowed her paycheck. Then came the layoffs at the shop when the owner passed away, leaving everyone scrambling for survival. Within 3 months, Mara found herself standing outside the apartment she once felt safe in, holding 2 bags of clothes and memories that no longer held a place in her world. It's temporary, she told herself each night. But temporary had stretched into weeks, then months, until Christmas Eve found her hungry, cold, and carrying her last $10. The bus finally pulled up, groaning with the weight of passengers and the pressure of icy air. Mara closed her eyes tightly, whispering a prayer she was no longer sure anyone heard. She stepped onto the bus, her boots soaked through, and placed her $10 bill into the fare box. As the bus door hissed shut behind her, she felt the weight of finality settle deep in her chest. She had nothing now. Absolutely nothing. Only hope, and hope, she felt, was starting to run dry. The bus rattled through the city, past glowing store windows filled with red ribbons, lit trees, and smiling mannequins. Children pulled their parents along the sidewalks, pointing at toy displays with excitement only Christmas could bring. But for Mara, the festive lights blurred into a stream of colors she could no longer emotionally touch. She pressed her forehead against the cold window, thinking of her mother's voice, the only warmth she could still find in her mind. Miracles show up when your hands are empty, darling, her mother used to say. That's when you're able to receive them. The words stabbed her with equal hope and pain. When the bus reached the shelter district, Mara stepped off and hugged her thin coat tighter around herself. The shelter line was already long. People stood shoulder to shoulder, some coughing, some arguing softly, some shivering in silence. The sun was dipping lower, stretching the afternoon toward evening. Mara's stomach cramped again, and she leaned against a pole for balance. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, a stale roll someone had given her out of pity. She steadied herself, taking slow breaths, refusing to break down. Tears would only freeze on her cheeks anyway. The shelter door opened briefly, and someone announced that only 10 more beds remained. Mara counted the people ahead of her and realized she was number 12. A tightness clamped around her lungs. She stepped out of the line, not wanting the pain of being turned away publicly. Instead, she walked toward an abandoned bench near the corner store. She sat down slowly, her bones aching, her body exhausted. She stared at the passing cars, families going home, shoppers running last-minute errands, people holding cups of coffee and planning warm dinners. She whispered, I just need one break. One. Just once. A white car pulled up to the curb several feet away. At first, she assumed it was a taxi dropping someone off, but when the back door opened, no one stepped out. The driver, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, stepped around the car and looked directly at her. For a moment, Mara panicked, unsure why he was approaching. He was dressed neatly in a black suit with a scarf tucked into his collar. His shoes looked expensive enough to buy a small apartment. You doing all right, miss? He asked gently. Mara nodded even though it wasn't true. She didn't trust strangers. Being on the streets had taught her that lessons faster than anything else. You look cold, he added. And hungry. Her voice was a whisper. I'm fine, thank you. He studied her for a long moment, not with pity, but with the kind of concern people show when they actually see you and not the circumstances around you. Would you come with me? He asked. There's someone who wants to see you. The words chilled her more than the wind. I don't know you, she said, backing into the bench. That's fair. The man nodded. My name is Nolan. I drive for the Meriden Foundation. We help people in situations like yours. But this isn't a recruitment or anything official. Someone asked me to look for you specifically. Mara blinked. Her throat tightened. Me? Why? He gave a small shrug. Sometimes the universe points us towards someone. Sometimes a person sees something others overlook. She hesitated. Fear and desperation wrestled inside her. But something in Nolan's eyes calmed her. He wasn't lying. He wasn't pretending. He simply stood there waiting, letting her choose. Finally, she stood, wobbling slightly. Nolan gently steadied her and guided her toward the car. But when she saw the full vehicle, her steps froze. It was not an ordinary car. It was a limousine shining. Glossy. Completely out of place in this part of the city, her breath shattered into tiny puffs. No, this has to be a mistake, she whispered. Nolan opened the door. It isn't. Inside, the warmth hit her instantly, melting the chill from her bones. Soft music played, and a faint smell of vanilla filled the air. Mara sat slowly, unsure whether she was dreaming or delusional from hunger. Nolan climbed into the front, made a quick call, then the limousine pulled back into traffic. The drive felt unreal. They crossed neighborhoods she had once known when her life was steady, then moved into streets she had never seen, places where the sidewalks gleamed and buildings looked like glass sculptures reflecting the afternoon sun. Finally, the limousine stopped in front of a quaint brick building decorated with garlands, white lights, and a simple wooden sign that read Breyer and Finch Bakery. The door opened, and the warm scent of fresh bread wrapped around her like a hug. Inside, an older woman with silver hair tied in a bun stood behind the counter. Her apron was dusted with flour. Her eyes glowed with a kindness that almost knocked the breath out of Mara. You found her, the woman said to Nolan before turning her gaze to Mara. Sweetheart, come here. Mara stepped closer cautiously. She didn't recognize this woman. My name is Harriet Finch, the woman said softly. And I owe you a thank you. Mara shook her head. Ma'am. I think you have the wrong. You gave my grandson Gavin your umbrella 3 weeks ago, Harriet interrupted. It was a stormy afternoon. You were crossing 5th Street. He said you looked like you needed that umbrella more than he did, yet you handed it to him and walked away before he could return it. He came home soaking wet but talking endlessly about the brave young woman who saved him from getting sick.